Hello and welcome to the third Brim Devlog. In the recent weeks I have been working on Brim more than ever, and so I've decided to make another devlog in such a short time span. But let's get started. As you see, I've started to implement some basic enemies which have currently like a really dumb path finding. Currently it's just drawing a straight diagonal to the player and following that line, and so that is not a good idea to follow, because if you stand behind a collision object it will just follow this straight line, although they have a collision object in front of them. And yeah, another thing that I've implemented is this kind of game feel. So I've started to work on game feeling because I think that is a really important thing when considering making a game, because of course you're not only coding and programming the game, but you need to make the game feel good in order for people to play it. And if you don't have a really nice game with a good game feeling to it, nobody will play it, of course. And so I've started to use this kind of hit flash when the enemy gets hit, and a damage count. As you see, if it gets hit, you get this kind of -1. And if you hit it, maybe you haven't noticed it yet, the enemy gets like squashed or stretched when I attack it, and this makes the player think that he's really hitting something, as well as the screen shake makes the game feel a lot better, in my opinion. And as you see right here, I've implemented these trees that you can attack and they get squashed also, and have this nice health bar that continuously changes color when losing health. And if you move into the into like a small radius of the tree, it will get transparent in order for you to see behind it, which is quite a cool feature in my opinion. If you want a tutorial on that, I will make one, of course. And yeah, so you can hit them also, which is pretty cool. And currently they don't drop any things, but yeah. So I'm not actually sure if I've shown the boomerang in the last devlog, or if it already was implemented in the last devlog, but I've implemented this boomerang, which is really cool in my opinion. So if you can charge the boomerang if you hold the left mouse button, and it jumps to the position where your mouse was. So this is like really cool, and was quite a pain to implement actually, in my opinion, but not very difficult, so you probably can do it as well. And yeah, the more difficult thing to implement was to make the boomerang continuously get more damage. So as you see, when it's charging up and fully charged, the boomerang will do more damage than if it's not charged up. And that is like really cool, and this is one key thing considering when playing the game, because of course it will be more difficult to play with the boomerang not charged up at all, because it will do less damage than charging up the boomerang and throwing it. And yeah, so as you see on the top left corner, you see I have implemented some chests, which were quite difficult to implement, but actually not, because if you have ever worked already on an inventory system, a chest system will be also quite easy to implement because it's basically the same as an inventory, a grid, but just being stored in an object instead of in the game object, basically. So I create an object called object chest, and in this object I'm gonna create a grid which basically currently has the size 40 with 8 on this and 5 on the horizontal. And in this grid currently you store nothing, but you can pick items and store it in here. And if you go into this chest, it is empty. If you go on this chest, you have 12 beef. And the more important or more difficult thing to implement was this white outline, which is being made by shaders as well as my player outline. So the player currently has no black outline, but as you notice in game it has this black outline, and I implemented that by using shaders. And there is quite a good tutorial out there by Sean Spalding that you can follow in order to get the black outline. And to get the white outline, you basically just need to add I think 3 or 2 lines of code in the shader, and yeah, so it's quite easy to implement. So as you may noticed already, if you drop an item, you see that these also have white outlines. At the time of this video, I'm not actually sure if shaders take up a lot of performance, so currently I have this implemented in nearly every object. So here we have this white shader and in the items. So as you see on top, I've implemented basic leveling, which is currently not real leveling. It's just an index counting up and up, and if it reached a maximum index, it will level up by once. And this is like a really basic leveling system that will be that I will be working on later, because I will need it in the future. So as you see in the background here, if I move my player with the dash, you see this kind of trail, which is not the player anymore, but this kind of white flash. And this is basically another shader which just draws the player white, or changes the color white. This is also pretty easy to implement. If you want a tutorial on that, I can make it in the future as well. And I've implemented some basic room transitions. So if you go into here, we have this kind of cool room transition. Currently not saving stuff, but I will get to that later. So that's currently it. That's currently everything I've implemented so far, and actually I think it's quite a lot that I've implemented, but yeah, it could have been more, of course. So I hope you enjoyed my video. If yes, please leave a like. If you have any suggestions or any critique, just leave them down in the comments. I will get to them as quickly as possible. And see you next time.